Here we are again, and today we are in Genesis chapter 38, and we're going to read 38 and 39 as we move our way through Genesis here. So let's take a look. Genesis 38 1. About this time, Judah left home and stayed in Alban, where he stayed with a man named Harai. There he saw a Canaanite woman, the daughter of Susha, and he married her. When he slept with her, 33, she became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and they named the boy Ur. 4. Became pregnant again and gave birth to another son, and she named him Omar. And she gave birth to a third son, and she named him Shelah. At the time of Shelah's birth, they were living in Kisbah. In the course of time, Judah arranged for his firstborn son Ur to marry a young woman named Tamar. Both Ur was a wicked man, but Ur was a wicked man in the Lord's sight, so the Lord took his life. 8. Then Judah said to Ur, brother of Omar, go and marry Tamar, as our law requires of a brother of a man who has died. You must produce an heir for your brother. 9. But Omar was not willing to have a child who had not been his own heir. So whenever he had intercourse with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground. This prevented her from having a child who would belong to his brother. 10. But the Lord considered it evil for Omar to deny a child to his dead brother, so the Lord took Omar's life too. 11. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, go back to your parents' home and remain a widow until my son Shelah is old enough to marry you. But Judah didn't really intend to do this because he was afraid Shelah would also die like his other two brothers. So Tamar went back to live at her father's house. 12. Some years later, Judah's wife died. After a time of mourning was over, Judah and his friends, Hurrah and Abilam, went up to Timnah to supervise the shearing of the sheep. 13. Someone told Tamar, look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear sheep. 14. Tamar was aware that Shelah had grown up, but no arrangement had been made for her to come and marry him. So she changed out of her widow's clothes and covered herself with a veil and disguised herself. Then she sat beside the road of the entrance to the village of Imrah, which is on the road to Timnah. Jodas noticed her and thought she was a prostitute since she had covered her face. 16. So he stopped and propositioned her. Let me have sex with you, he said, not realizing that she was his own daughter-in-law. How much will you pay to have sex with me tomorrow? Asked. I will send you a young goat from my flock, Judah promised. But what will you give me as a guarantee you will send a goat? She asked. 18. What kind of garment do you want? He replied. She answered, leave me your identification seal and its cord and the walking stick you are carrying. So Judah gave her to them. Then he had intercourse with her and she became pregnant. Afterwards, she went back home, took off the veil, and put on her widow clothing as usual. 20. Later, Judah asked a friend of Huram the Ammonite to take the young goat to the woman and to pick up the things he had given her for his guarantee. But Huram couldn't find her. 21. So he asked the men who lived there, where can I find the shrine prostitute who was sitting beside the road at the entrance. We've never had a shrine prostitute here, they replied. 22. When Haran returned to Judah and told him I couldn't find her anywhere, and the men in the village claimed they'd never had a shrine prostitute there. 23. Then let her keep the things I gave her, Judah said. I sent the young goat as we agreed, but you couldn't find her. We'd be a laughing stock of the village if we went back again and looked for her. 24. About 3 months later, Judah was told Tamar, your daughter-in-law, had acted like the prostitute. And now, because of this, she became pregnant. Bring her out and let her be burned, Judah demanded. 25. But they were taking her out to kill her. She sent a message to her father-in-law. The men who own these things made me pregnant. Look closely. Whose seal and cord and walking stick are these? 26. Jude recognized them immediately and said, she is more righteous than I am, because I didn't arrange for her to marry my son Shiloh. And Jude never slept with Tamar again. 27. When the time came for Tamar to give birth, it was discovered that she was carrying twins. While she was in labor, one of the babies reached out his hand, and the midwife grabbed it and tied a scarlet string around the child's wrist, announcing this one came first. But then he pulled it back his hand, and out came his brother. What the midwife exclaimed, how did you break out first? So his name was Perez. Then the baby with the scarlet string tied around his wrist was born, and his name was Ephraim. $39. So Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelites, traders, who had purchased by Potiphar, the Egyptian officer. Potiphar was a captain of the garden, and Potiphar, the king of Egypt. 29. Or 2. 39, 2. The Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the house of the Egyptian master. Did you hear those words? Everything he did prospered because of the Lord. Man, what a great thing it is that God blesses those who are faithful to him. 4. This pleased Potiphar, so he made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of the entire household and everything he owned. From that day, Joseph was put in charge of the master's household and property, and the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. All of the household's affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. Notice what happened? The house was blessed because of Joseph. God blesses his people. And when they work for people, he'll bless their businesses. When he does all these when they are faithful and true to God, God's blessings pour down and flow out through them as well. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing except for what kind of food he ate. Man, that means he was a man of integrity. He did everything that was right and honest and true. What a way for God to call out his servant, even though he's in captivity, even though he's a slave. He did what was right. He respected his master. He obeyed his master, and he did a magnificent job for his master, just as we're called to do for those who we work for. Joseph was very handsome and well-built young man. 7. Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. Come and sleep with me, she demanded. 8. But Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything and is in entire household. 9, no one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God. See, he recognized the sin of this, of disobedience, and he wasn't going to do it. 10. She kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day, but he refused to sleep with her, and he kept out of her way so much as possible. He avoided her. The situation didn't go away, but he tried to stay away and stay out of it because she just kept coming after him. 11. One day, however, no one else was around when he went in to do his work. 12. She came and grabbed him by the cloak, demanding, "Come on, sleep with me." Joseph tore himself away and left his cloak in her hand and ran from the house. 13. When she saw that she was still holding the cloak after he fled, she called out to her servant. Soon the men came running. "Look, look," she said, "my husband has brought this Hebrew slave here and made a fool of us. He came into my room and raped me." But I screamed. When he heard me scream, he ran outside and got away, but left his cloak behind with me. God is blessing him, but he is not immune from trouble, from persecution, which the Bible tells us those who follow Christ will be persecuted. Jesus said, "They persecute me, they will persecute you also." And so just because we follow the Lord doesn't mean everything is going to be rosy. But let's continue on in verse 16. She kept the cloak with her until her husband came. 17. Then she told him her story. The Hebrew slave you brought into our house tried to come in and fool around with me, she said. 18. When I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his cloak with me. 19. Potiphar was furious when he heard this. Now, think about that for a minute. Here's a man who had been with him, who had been faithful, who true, who done everything right. But one accusation, and he turns on him. And that's kind of the way the world is. We don't focus on what has been done, but what's happening right now in the moment. And we're the same way. We need to be very careful about that and how we respond in those times. We need to take a look back and say, is this the character of that person? Is this the way they normally would act? What's going on? 19. Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about Joseph, how he had treated her. 20. So he took Joseph, threw him into prison where the king's prisoners were held, and there he remained. So that was the worst, the darkest of dungeons, the deepest, the place where people were forgotten. We're down there. 21. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him faithful love. God is with us wherever we are, even in the darkest, deepest places the man could put us. He is there, and he showed him love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. He blessed him where he was. God is always with us no matter where we were. Let's look. 22. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. We see the same thing happening again. Why? Because of God's hand. Because God blessed him and protected him. We also see Joseph being a man of integrity again. Though he's in prison, he doesn't try to do anything wrong. He doesn't try to cause problems. He just does what he's called to do and shows responsibility, and he shows respect for those around him. Before long, 22, the warden put Joseph in charge of the other prisoners and over everything that happened in prison. 23, the warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything, and the Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. Again, we see God blessing those around his servant and his people. And our faithfulness to God rolls down to our family, to our jobs, to all those other things. And so we pray today that you're faithful, that you're a man of integrity or a woman of integrity, that you seek the truth of the gospel. God bless you. Have a great day.